So that gave me some adjustment that come to the clear day. Okay, so we are here. Sarasama, West London, and today is a very special day. Today is Gundicha Marjan, cleaning of the Lord's temple, and we went through this chapter not so long ago, it was maybe 2 weeks ago, and we heard this beautiful description of Mahaprabhu personally cleaning the Lord's temple, sweeping twice, and then washing it several times with hundreds and hundreds of buckets of water, and sometimes washing with his tears, cleaning with his own cloth. Very beautiful description. And there's a significant commentary on that by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as we discussed. That this is, Mahaprabhu is giving an important teaching to the world here, demonstrating that before we invite the Lord to enter our heart, then we must first clean our heart. So if we conceive of the temple as a manifestation of one's heart, then first, before we bring the Lord there, then we must clean that place. And this, of course, takes place before the day of Rath Yatra, when the Lord is brought from Sundara Chal, as it is referred to sometimes, the main Jagannath temple. He's brought from there to oh no, maybe I have it the wrong way. No, maybe the Gundicha is referred to as Sundara Chal, and the Jagannath temple, Nila Chal, maybe. But anyhow, he's brought from his main temple to this Gundicha temple. And so before he is brought, then first there's some preparation to receive him. And Saraswati Thakur explains how all of these different types of impurities that are cleaned from the temple, they represent different anarthas within the practitioner. Whether too much attachment to karma, enjoying tendency, or gyan, renunciation, liberation tendency, and different things are mentioned there. Cheating, desire for pratishta, so on and so forth. So the grass, the dirt, the sand, etc., all represents different impurities in the heart of the practitioner. So, important teaching for us. Bhukti mukti spriya javat pishachi hridivartate tavat bhakti sukhasyacha katam abhyudayo bhavet. This famous verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which came up the other day in Rupa Shiksha, that how can we expect to have the grace of Bhakti Devi if we still have these witches within our heart? First we have to bid adieu to them, and then we can invite the noble lady of devotion. So this is an important principle in the practice of pure devotion. And this is also a day when we can all take the opportunity to do some cleaning in the Lord's temple, and we can conceive of ourselves cleaning our hearts in the process of doing so. And then tomorrow is Rath Yatra day. I don't know if they're going to perform Rath Yatra in Puri. I've been hearing some debate about that amongst the various officials in the government there. I don't know what their final decision was. But in any case, we can think of it as an eternal Leela that is always going on, whether or not we can see it with our eyes, whether it's happening in a gross sense. Mahaprabhu's pastimes are eternal, and so that is an eternal Leela of the Lord. And it's very beautiful descriptions of Mahaprabhu participating very joyfully in the Ratha Yatra festival. Yesterday was the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit. So we're in a very special three-day festival period. And we are particularly indebted to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's like one of our great fathers, like a godfather for all of us. He is sometimes referred to as a pioneer of pure devotion. We were hearing last night this wonderful composition of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Vinod Viraha Dashakam. And there Srila Sridhar Maharaj so beautifully, so eloquently describes, how degraded the general society had become, and how the followers of Mahaprabhu, they were not being the true dignity of Mahaprabhu's line. It had been covered over, and there were so many different groups who were misrepresenting Mahaprabhu's line, using the name of Mahaprabhu, but following in so many distorted ways. And so the good section of society, they lost their regard for the Vaishnavas. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he did such an important service. He was very highly positioned within society and perfectly placed to represent the dignified aspect of Mahaprabhu's teachings. And he was in such a position that persons had to listen to him. He was a magistrate. He was highly educated. He was mixing with the upper echelon of society. He was a contemporary of Rabindranath Tagore, very good friends with a brother of Rabindranath Tagore. So he was very well placed, and persons had to pay attention to him. There's one, he was really of course it's a relative view, because of course the Vaishnav does not need recognition from the society. Gorky Shordas Babaji could not write his own name. So from the absolute perspective, these things, they don't have so much value. But in a relative sense, we can appreciate, that he appeared in such a way so that it highlights that it's not that the Vaishnavas are inferior in any way, it's not that they can't stand next to, it's just whether they choose to or not, whether they can stand next to this level of society or not. It's just a matter of what they choose to be suitable for the particular role that they're playing. But there was one meeting, I meant to read that last night, and I got distracted with other things, but in the original edition of Navadvita Mahatmya, there was an article, I think it's in one of the sermons books as well, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, it's an article from a talk of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he mentions this meeting that was held at one point after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and many great dignitaries of the day, they gathered to honor him. I think there was a university chancellor and this kind of stuff. And then there was one man who I don't think was exactly a Vaishnav, but some type of scholar, but he described Bhaktivinoda Thakur as the eighth Goswami. We've heard of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, And he described Bhaktivinoda Thakur as the seventh Goswami. That he appreciated, like his level of contribution was so high. So he attracted such regard. And there's another incident we heard of, and this was in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's last days, when because he took Babaji. It was at the very end of his life in this world. Maybe it was like the last 2 years or something like that. He was in Babaji Vesh. We don't hear so much about that. I only know what I know from what I've heard from Gurudev and Srila Sridhar, and I didn't hear them talk about it so much. But we know that he in those last few years he withdrew from society. He withdrew from his preaching work. Focused on Nam Bhajan, like that. And there was one incident when some very educated men from Calcutta, they were young men, they were intrigued because I think one of them was a lawyer, and they were intrigued. I think one of them was Ram Gopal Vidyabhushan, who later took initiation from Saraswati Thakur and was like a great Sanskrit scholar. But anyhow, there was this group of young men, young educated men who came they heard about this government magistrate who had become a Hare Krishna, who'd become like this Vaishnava Babaji saint, this employed by the British government, highly situated man, who then entered into this simple life of devotion. So they were really intrigued, and they traveled to visit him, for a kind of informal interview with him. And there's a description of how when they met with him, they asked him at some point, something like, can you tell us something about Krishna? Or, we hear that you are a great devotee of Krishna. Can you tell us something? They asked him something like that. And just to hear the name, just to hear them ask that question, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he entered into this ecstatic trance. This song at the end of Sharanagati, Nam Mahatmya, was inspired. Bhaktivinoda Thakur later wrote that. Oh, hey, gone now. Oh, wait, I'm not sure. I'm not sure when that was written, actually, but I thought I heard that. But anyway, in that Sharanagati song, he describes this ecstatic mood upon hearing the name of Krishna. But on that occasion, when those men asked him, just to hear that, he became completely ecstatic and trembling and tears, and he kept asking them, "Oh, you want to hear about Krishna? You are so fortunate. You are so blessed. You have some taste for the name of Krishna." And prior to that, those last few years, he was very engaged in society, and using everything that he had for the cause of Mahaprabhu. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he wrote this wonderful verse summarizing what Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave us. It's in Sharanagati, in the introductory section of his Laghu Chandrika Bhasya, his commentary on Sharanagati. Guru Dham, that he has given us Guru. This is his primary gift. He gave us Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He gave us our Guru. Doesn't get better than that, really. Because he was working, as we've said, he was working within the existing society. And he was he was gradually shifting the attitude of people towards Mahaprabhu's conception. But he needed to really fulfill his mission, he needed a revolutionary. Gurudev made a nice comparison between Bhakti Vinod and Saraswati Thakur with Vyasadev and Shukadev. Because Shukadev, he had, given Bhagavatam. He had composed Bhagavatam, the message of Bhagavatam. But he considered, am I the right person to give this to the world? How much will people hear from me? He was like a grihasta. He knew the ways of the world, and if I present this, people, they may not give so much. I'm presenting, this very radical conception, the aprakrita Leela of Krishna, of Vrindavan. This is not an easy thing to digest. So he felt, I'm not the right person to give that. And then he understood his son, Shukadev, was the one. And so similarly, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was involved in the world, he was a family man, and he felt there's some limit as to how much how much change can be affected, how much the glory of Mahaprabhu's movement can be manifest, directly through me. And so he prayed to the Lord, please send one of your own men, please send someone who can fulfill this mission. And Gurudev, he loved this one verse in this song. We heard in the class we heard yesterday, he would always quote this, Shri Gauranga Padishah Thakur Bhakti Vinod, Dina Hina Pati Tera Bandhu, Kalitama Vina Shite Anilena Avanite, Toma Akalanka Purna Indus. Very beautiful song in glorification of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this is like the penultimate verse. It's like one of the concluding verses of the song. The song is about Saraswati Thakur, and then in one of these final verses, the writer is shifting with some appreciation for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, saying that you brought him here. Shri Gauranga Padishah Thakur Bhaktivinoda, and he recognized, and it's quite extraordinary because this man was something of an outsider. He wasn't a disciple of Saraswati Thakur, but he could see, he had some blessing, insight, he understood who was who. And so he describes there Bhaktivinoda as Sri Gauranga Padishah, as an eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Dina Hina Pati Tera Bandhu, and that Bhaktivinoda is the best friend of the fallen, the poor and fallen souls of this world. And then he brought you out of his mercy. He brought you here. Srila Sridhar Maharaj would sometimes express it like that he was attracted by Saraswati Thakur was attracted by the wealth of the heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So by the grace of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we had Saraswati Thakur, who is the head of our modern sampradaya. We're as Gurudev has commented, we're not doing anything that wasn't done by Saraswati Thakur. We're not looking beyond Saraswati Thakur. Krishna consciousness has been practiced and applied in many different ways throughout the ages. But how, here and now, in this age, how will we apply? How will we practice? We're looking to Saraswati Thakur for that. So, he gave us our guru, and then he started the revolution. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also envisioned this movement spreading across the world. And he made that famous comment that within 50 years, this holy name will be spread across the world, and we will see that the Westerners and the Indians, they will together chant. Westerners will come to Bengal, and they will chant and dance with the Indian devotees. Jai Sachinandana, Jai Gaur Hari. This was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's comment. Gurudev, he mentioned that when he came to join the Math, he heard that quoted, and he thought, well, I'm not so sure. This is like 1947, right? And Gurudev thought, well, I don't know, quite sure. Maybe it will happen at some point, but within 50 years. And then, as Gurudev expressed, he was so happy he could be a witness to that actually happening in such a short space of time. So that was in the divine eye of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then Saraswati Thakur, he took that up. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also sent the first literature into the West. He sent that book, Lord Chaitanya's Life and Precepts. He sent it to McGill University in Canada. So the very first, like time bomb, it got sent by Bhaktivinoda. And then Saraswati Thakur, he continued that. He picked up that thread and he sent the first preachers to Germany, to England. And it was all, it was one of his major themes of discussion. We need to preach in the West, especially America. He was particularly, he'd sent preachers to London, to Germany, and he was disappointed with the level of success, and then finally he was very much focused on America. He wanted to send preachers to him. He was planning himself to go there. He was planning to spend the last 10 years of his life there. But he left early, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj commented that he gave those 10 years to Swami Maharaj. Because Swami Maharaj, he fulfilled his mission in approximately a 10-year period. So Saraswati Thakur, he impressed this upon his disciples. Swami Maharaj had that ringing in his ears, and so at such an advanced age, he took that mission up to cross the Atlantic Ocean in poor health. So that was all initiated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that whole, that divine plan to save the fallen souls like ourselves. Granta Dham, Guru Dham, Granta Dham. This is the next phrase in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's verse. Granta, scripture. He gave us scripture. He revived scriptures which had become almost lost. I believe Chaitanya Charitamrita, also Srimad Bhagavatam. They were not very easily available, very widely available. Upadeshamrita, I believe, was almost completely lost. So he brought these books back into circulation. And also wrote commentaries. He wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he also wrote so many books, over 100 books, in so many different languages as well. English, Hindi, Sanskrit, Bengali, Tamil, Persian. And Gurudev also commented on how he he was able to write in a variety of different styles in order to appeal to the broadest possible audience. And so he was able, he wrote also poetry, like extraordinary poetry. You would not believe a Bengali man had written it. It sounds like, Christian, Victorian, British poetry. Very extraordinary. And then he wrote books that would be appreciated by Western scientific-minded persons. He wrote books that would be appreciated by more traditional Vedic, Indian-minded persons. He wrote songs also. He gave so many songs for the simple villagers like ourselves, as Gurudev said. The song medium is very powerful because it, in a very organic way, can enter people's cultures and daily lives. Gurudev commented about Sharanagati that everything is there. Everything is there. The whole essence of the scriptures is there in Sharanagati. So he's given so much in his writings. Like Vyasadeva. Gurudev wrote a very beautiful article about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he gives there's this one very beautiful expression where he says how he churned the ocean of the Vedic knowledge and gave butter, something like that. Like all the scriptural knowledge he churned and he gave us like the butter in the distilled essence of it. And he made one very nice, I really, really appreciate this comment of Gurudev's. It gives a very nice angle on the mission and the life of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said how, and it's also very instructive for ourselves, that he commented that his preaching was very broad, was very accommodating, but his personal bhajan was very exclusive. His worshipable deity was Gaur Gadadhar, and this is also very significant. I don't feel very qualified to talk on that, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur had great affinity for Gadadhar, and Srila Saraswati Thakur, in Krishna Leela, the highest vision of Guru is Radharani, and then in Gaur Leela, the highest vision of Guru will be Gadadhar, who is the manifestation of Radharani in Gaur Leela. So that was Saraswati Thakur's vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. As he identified Gadadhar and Pandit in him, and he identified the day of Bhaktivinoda's disappearance as also the disappearance of Gadadhar Pandit. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had great affinity for Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, and that the worship of Gaur Gadadhar, that was his most favorite worship, and he worshipped those deities. And Gurudev describes that worship is very high, very exclusive. We don't perform that type of worship. We're not qualified. And Gurudev, when someone suggested to him once worshipping those deities in our mat, Gurudev said, that is the private chamber of bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it's a very nice point that his approach to preaching was extremely broad and accommodating and adaptive. But in his internal bhajan, his internal practicing service life, he was very fine, very exclusive. So it's a very, very nice point for us to consider. That we may adapt different methods. Saraswati Thakur's expression was Vaikunta Ritti. We must be very broad in our approach to attracting the souls of this world. But internally, we need to constantly be refining and honing our own appreciation and our own application of the teachings. Otherwise, the two things can start to get blurred. So it's a very nice point. Guru Dham, Grantha Dham, Gaur Dham Adham, the next gift of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srila Maharaj describes it. He gave us Gaur Dham. He gave us Navadvip. He revealed Navadvip, the divine birthplace of the Lord, and made it, a dignified place of pilgrimage in the same way that Vrindavan is. As Rup and, really, like that expression is so perfect, that comment that person made, that his, he was like the seventh Goswami, because his work was on the same level as the Goswami. So as Rup and Sanatan, they revealed Vrindavan, because Vrindavan had been, for different reasons, partly because of just the passage of time, largely because of the Muslim presence in India. These sacred sites connected with Krishna's pastimes, they were covered over, they were forgotten and lost. So that was a very important service that Rup and Sanatan did. They revealed these places, and they made them dignified places of pilgrimage, and they also made the environment in Vrindavan favorable for pilgrims to come and to be taken care of, to be accommodated. So similarly, Bhakti, as Rup and Sanatan did that with Vrindavan, so Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he did that with Navadvip. He revealed the glory of Navadvip. He identified the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. He established a committee for the service of the Dham, which he passed on to Srila Saraswati Thakur. There was one comment he made. They were collecting some money in this committee that he'd established for the service of the Navadvip Dham. There was one comment he made, like I'm ready to go myself door to door, to collect the funds that we need. And there was, maybe that doesn't sound so impressive to us, but if we think like he was a government magistrate, but there was one newspaper reporter who heard that, and he was so impressed he reported it. He included it in some report about the work of the committee. Like he said that he himself is ready to to go door to door to collect the required funds. And he also put pressure on Saraswati Thakur. We think of Saraswati Thakur as this like very powerful, great, kind of like extrovert, revolutionary. But in the beginning, he didn't have that inclination. He was living like the Goswamis, chanting so many thousands of names every day, living very quietly in Mayapur. And he didn't want to mix with the world, with all the materialistic persons in the world. And it was Bhakti Vinod Thakur who put pressure on him. You have to do this. Gurudev, he said that he told him, if you will not give your blood for Mahaprabhu, you will become a Mayavadi. So he put pressure on him. And Gurudev, he also said that Bhakti Vinod Thakur told him, and your mother will be very happy. He had some special affection for his mother, Saraswati Thakur. So he started that, he revealed, and went to great trouble. He'd actually retired from his government service, and he re-entered into government service in order to have access, and he requested a transfer to Krishnanagar, so that he had access to all these government records. giving some indication to help him in his identification of the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. So he consulted with so many historical records, maps, and he had that vision when he was staying in the island of Godrumadweep. He had that vision of this shining golden city. And he could understand that, this is the place, and the records were confirming that. And then there's that famous incident, he had Jagannath Das Babaji come, with his pure heart, pure devotional heart, to give some heart confirmation. And it said he leapt out. He was crippled. He was 100 and something, was carried in a basket. And when he reached there, he jumped out of his basket, began dancing in ecstasy. So he identified that birthplace, established a worship temple there, a committee for the care, the upkeep of the Dham, and he ensured it was passed on to his son, Srila Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Dham, Guru Dham, Grantha Dham, Gaur Dham, Dham, Nama Dham. He gave the holy name, he gave the pure conception of the holy name. He emphasized the importance of chanting with the proper conception, with pure practices. The name is not a material vibration. Bhakti Dham, he gave the conception of pure devotion. Puri Dham means like he gave so much, And Srila Sridhar Maharshi, he gave such an abundance like that. And Srila Sridhar Maharshi, he explains that is indicating Radha Dasyam. This is his highest gift. And this we were discussing last night, this extraordinary verse of Srila Sridhar Maharshi, where he describes that this is the ultimate gift. Shri Radha Pada Sevanamrita Mahota Datam Isho Bhavan. And showing, like how he has such a dignified position in the lineage of Mahaprabhu, in the line of Mahaprabhu, and he is there with all of these acharjas, Srup Damodar, Rup, Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, as they all had such an important position in connection with the distribution of Mahaprabhu's gift, his mercy, so also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also has that. And this is his highest glory, that he can give that, connection with the divine service of Srimati Radharani. So he's given us everything. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there's this one, there's some beautiful verses that Saraswati Thakur wrote in glorification of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His commentary, he wrote a commentary. And this is also an interesting point, because as we said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Amrita Prabhaha Bhasya. And then Saraswati Thakur also wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anubhashya. So does that mean he was being offensive? There's room. There's room for different angles, for different approaches. So Saraswati Thakur, he completed his Anubhashya, I think it was like a year or something after Bhaktivinoda Thakur had left the world, or maybe a few months. But he had this mingled feeling of happiness and sadness because, he'd shared this as he was working on this. He was working on it for some extended period of time. And as he was working on it, he would share and no doubt consult with also Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And his idea is that this is an offering, right, to his guru. And so he was sad because, he was happy he'd finally completed this service, but he was also sad because he couldn't directly offer it to his guru. And he wrote these beautiful prayers in glorification of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's this one line, to whom can I convey my joy? Like, to whom can I share this with? Now Bhaktivinoda is not here. He relished this. Now he's not here. I cannot share it with him. And then he also, I don't remember actually if it's that same composition or maybe it's another one. But he gives some glorification of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He describes him as a manifestation of Gadadhar Pandit. And another comment that he makes is that my brain has just blanked. Another comment he makes is that that nobody, and this is what I was listening to this yesterday in the afternoon. This Gurudev mentioned in this one talk that nobody in human form has ever come and given what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given. Nobody who's ever come to this world in a human form has ever given what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given. and Gurudev, he said he thought about that a lot. That how can he say that? This is Saraswati Thakur's expression. How can he say that? He's saying, like, Mahaprabhu came, Rup and Sanatan came. They all came in human form. So many great acharyas, Ramanuja, Acharya, like so many great acharyas have come. How can he say this about bhakti? That bhakti, is this just his like blindness as a devoted follower of Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Is it just that? And then he said, Gurudev said, the conclusion he came to was that actually it is true, because no doubt all these great personalities came and they gave the ultimate gift, but at the same time it was confined within a very limited sphere. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he expanded that sphere. He distributed it in a way which it had not been distributed before. He distributed in such a wide way within India, and he sent that to the West, sent that to the western part of the world. And he also, put so much in writing, so that for generations, and so much, not only so much in writing, but in so many different styles, that for generations afterwards it could be appreciated by so many different classes of persons. So in that sense, what he did is actually incomparable. Like he's comparable to Veda Vyas, but Veda Vyas, what he put was in Sanskrit. Like how many people can access that? But Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in so many different languages and so many different styles, so that for generations afterwards, persons can read and appreciate, persons of so many different walks of life. So in that sense, what he's done, it is incomparable. It is something that hadn't been done before. And it's interesting because, like, by contrast, Saraswati Thakur, this is one of the special things about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mood. He was so accommodating. And then by contrast, Saraswati Thakur was not accommodating. It was like Bhaktivinoda Thakur was casting a wide net, and then Saraswati Thakur, he was giving like the very straight and pure thing. And so like by contrast, Saraswati Thakur's writings, they're very difficult to understand. If you look at his language, and deliberately, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given us he's given such a wide range of writings. If we look at his songs, any uneducated person who can barely read, they can appreciate the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But Saraswati Thakur, you can't understand, his writings. It's very, very sophisticated language. And deliberately, he's conveying the dignity and the exalted nature of what the subject matter is. Gurudev, he mentioned once about one article of Saraswati Thakur that was written in English. Gurudev said, we should translate it into Bengali. And Shuddha Shabda said, first we have to translate it into English. Yes, it's true. Very difficult to understand. So, that was the accommodating nature of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And still today, we these things, they have relevance, They have relevance and they're appreciable. So, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned, our debt unto his holy feet, it has no end. It has no end. What he has done for the souls like ourselves. Okay, well maybe we'll stop there. Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami ki jai. Shri Gundicha Marjan ki jai. Shri Rathayatra Adivas ki jai. Does someone want to chant? Whose turn is it to chant?
Very beautiful. No wonder Lalitamala is working on him.
That's why it's taken him so long. His PhD is on Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He'll spend his whole life.
Forever.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha
Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana
Hari Hari Hari